Welcome into college football smothered and covered. My name is Barrett Salee. Appreciate you checking out the show. Reminder to follow on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube, Rumble, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. It's been a great week. Why not have a weekend feast? Here's the best of the best from this week's college football smothered and covered. Administrative season never seems to stop, honestly. And yesterday, Tuesday, Nick Saban, among others, went to Capitol Hill, talked to everybody up there, the decision makers who never make decisions. So in reality, might not have been worth it, but Nick Saban went up there. He sat in a round table with Ted Cruz. For those of you who aren't necessarily tuned in to some political leanings of people who don't really talk about politics, that in and of itself is rather odd. But this is something that has been previously scheduled for a very long time. And look, let's be honest. There are a lot more things that they should be discussing, even in the college athletics world. So in the grand scheme of things, yeah, the NIL roundtable popped yesterday because Saban's on Capitol Hill. There was a lot of other things happening on Capitol Hill yesterday, but that's neither here nor there. But this was a big deal, and Saban got ridiculed, and we'll talk a little bit about it after this clip, but some things he said ruffled the feathers of people on X, Twitter, wherever. So let's first play this, and then you can see, you can determine for yourself what your reaction to this is.
All the things that I believed in for all these years, 50 years of coaching, no longer exist in college athletics. So it's always was about developing players. It was always about helping people be more successful in life. My wife even said to me, we'd have all the recruits over on Sunday with their parents for breakfast, and she would always meet with the mothers and talk about how she was going to help and impact their sons and how they would be well taken care of. And she came to me, like right before I retired and said, why are we doing this? And I said, what do you mean? She said, all they care about is how much you're going to pay them. They don't care about how you're going to develop them, which is all what we've always done. So why are we doing this?
All right. So immediately upon that quote being posted on X, being said, you could see it on C-SPAN 2 or 3, whatever it was, everybody piled on Saban. What is he talking about? He's a hypocrite. He's used money to build his program under the table. Now it's above board, and suddenly everybody can do it legally, but that's how Saban built his empire. And look, I mean, first things first, it is possible for Nick Saban to walk and chew gum at the same time. It is possible for him to have the goal of developing players into spiritual leaders, better athletes, better people all around, better businessmen. That is okay. And even if Nick Saban was building his program with a little sketchiness under the table, that can be true too. He can have the opinion of, hey, I want college football to be like this, but it's not, so I'm going to operate this way. It's the same thing he did with hurry-up offenses. He hated them, but then he hired Lane Kiffin to operate one at the same time. It's the exact same thing. So this idea that Nick Saban is a hypocrite for going to Capitol Hill and saying, man, it's all about money now. And he said this before in the Chris Lowe piece a couple weeks ago. I guess it was last week, where all these players come in and they ask about money, or they're going to transfer, playing time, or they're going to transfer. What are you going to do for me financially? Yeah, that is what college football is now. He's not lying. That's 100% accurate. And at the same time, and you ask anybody around the Alabama program, developing college football players into better athletes, better people, better businessmen, better friends, better adults was absolutely one of his goals as well. So spare me this ridiculous idea. Spare me this idea that Nick Saban was being a hypocrite by saying it's all about money, but potentially building his program based on money under the table. Both things can be true. In fact, I think both things are true. Now, do I have proof that Nick Saban was doing things under the table, that he was not following the rules? No. No. There's not proof of anybody doing that out there, but we all know that it happened. And that's okay because now it's above the table. Now it is allowed. And yeah, now a lot more players are coming to him and saying, hey, you know what? I'm a second string cornerback and I'm making 50 G's. I want to play elsewhere and make 100. That's okay. So this idea that Nick Saban is being a hypocrite, it's so stupid. It's so lazy and so incredibly internet. You know, I go back to a quote from Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Near the end of the movie, this quote just absolutely stands out. Jason Lee says, "It's what the internet's for, slandering others anonymously." Well, that's what this is, slandering Nick Saban anonymously. Would you say this stuff to his face? No. Do you honestly believe what you're saying if you are criticizing Nick Saban? No. You're slandering others anonymously, even if you have your actual name and actual picture in your bio, because you know there are going to be no repercussions. It's lazy. It's lame. Don't do it. Don't do it. Actually have original thought. Actually understand that he is concerned with the level of college football right now. And again, it goes back to something. Remember back in 2014, the summer of 2014, Nick had already hired Lane Kiffin, right? And at the same time, then Arkansas coach Brett Bielema was putting together this proposal for the 10-second rule, which meant that the idea of it was that you'd have to snap the ball after 10 seconds on the play clock because he didn't want hurry-up offenses, or it would be a delay of game. Now, calling that a delay of game is ridiculous, and they'd probably rename it, but whatever. Nick jumped on board with Brett Bielema in this discussion. He had already hired Lane Kiffin. He already had Blake Sims as his quarterback. He brought Jake Coker in from Florida State that same year. But he went with Blake Sims, and he went with the hurry-up offense. And I remember I was sitting in the Georgia Dome, RIP Georgia Dome. It's a lot better than Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I was standing on the sidelines before the Alabama kickoff game. I think they were playing West Virginia that year. And all of us were talking about Jake Coker. Laser rocket arm. Could throw it from the end of the end zone to the other 40-yard line. Blake Sims can't do that. Of course not. But then Blake Sims comes out with the first team offense about halfway through the first quarter. Alabama's offense is bam, 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 high pace, fast pace, run plays. Doesn't matter what they are, just run plays. Nick Saban hated that. He didn't want football to be like that. Hell, he said he didn't want football to be like that. He did it anyway because he does care about the sport, but he wants things to operate his way as well. You know what that's like? Corporate America. That's all it is. Corporate America. So don't criticize Nick Saban. He's actually looking out for the greater good. You want a college football czar? Nick Saban essentially can be that guy. So it's just dumb. Don't do it. Don't be that guy. Don't be that person on X just desperately needing impressions, desperately needing retweets and likes and self-gratification when you know you don't mean it. Joined now by Travis Richmond and Eric Duncan of tipaplayer.com, one of the new NIL resources available to college athletes out there. What's going on, guys? How are you?
Good. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. This is a segment I've been looking forward to for a little bit because I'm very interested in how things have evolved in the NIL space in a variety of different ways. But you guys have something unique out there that fans can participate in, not fans that are just boosters, massive boosters, but the everyday fan out there. So tell us a little bit about tipaplayer.com.
Sure. Thanks, Barrett. It's great to be on your show and to tell your audience all about Tip a Player. As the co-founder of Tip a Player, or TAP, I want to explain to you what we're all about, and that's the players. Our slogan at Tip a Player is "Send money, they've earned it," because that's what we think about all Division I athletes. The truth is, most college athletes have yet to financially benefit from NIL, and we intend to change that. And here's how. So when you go to our website, tipaplayer.com, you can search for any player on any team at any school. And when you find that player or team that you're looking for, you simply decide how much money you want to send them and add these tips to your cart like you would on any e-commerce site. And TAP does the rest. Our platform currently features more than 123,000 players representing 24 sports at 360 schools. And the truth is, Tip a Player is a more efficient way to bring NIL to the masses, namely the average fans and all the players, not just wealthy donors and star players who are ones who are currently benefiting most from NIL.
It's a really fascinating project because, I think all of us in our industry were sort of surprised how NIL had evolved. I don't think a lot of us thought about collectives. Obviously we knew about the burger shop down the street that would happen. And we kind of figured there would be like the Dr. Pepper commercials that DJ Uyunglele and Caleb Williams were in. But this is something different and something that I don't think a lot of fans expected, an avenue like this. So I guess just take me through, kind of how you guys started this and what the reception was early on in the NIL era, because quite honestly, I think all of us are sort of still trying to figure out exactly what's allowed, what's not allowed, and things like that.
Well, Travis, go ahead. You came up with the idea and got it rolling about a little over a year ago.
Sure. And Barrett, you're totally right. We've talked to a lot of people and we get some feedback you'd expect from athletic departments and schools. I want to be clear. We're talking to schools. We see them as our partners here. We're all here to help serve the players and help them benefit financially. So it might be easy for Caleb Williams to get a TV deal to endorse something famous. But some of the feedback we got is, how do we get some NIL money for some of the backups, some of the players you don't really know about? And one of the things we're really excited to tell people about with Tip a Player is when you pick your favorite player and you say you want to send them $10, okay? The split is 90%, 10%. The player gets $9 and his team or her team pool gets the $1, the 10%. And at the end of every month, we cash everybody out once they give us the required deliverable. But the team pool is split equally among all members of the team who've activated their page with Tip a Player. And that means every time anybody's tipped, everybody eats. And this brings the whole team along, because what you don't want to do is divide a locker room, as you know. This is a common practice in the NFL where the star quarterback might buy a watch for his O-lineman who protected him. So how can we make sure everybody benefits from NIL? And we've established that process, a Tip a Player, with this 90-10 split.
Yeah, and one thing.
Go ahead, Eric.
Oh, I'm sorry, but one of the things I think we've noticed, that I've definitely noticed over the past months as we've been building the business, is we're really having to change the way people think about NIL and about what they can do with NIL. We're talking to compliance officials, we're talking to students, coaches, athletic officials, and the model has always been every individual has to sign a contract with an athlete to do a deal. And the way we've built the business is a bit different. It's more of a direct-to-consumer crowdfunding model where we do the deals with the athletes, and the athletes get their money from us, they endorse our business, and we source the money from other places. Now, we made sure we had our contracts and everything put together with smart lawyers in mind. They came and helped us out. And so when I've been able to get on the phone with these compliance officials and everyone else, the light bulb goes off. Like, oh, yeah, this works. We can do this fine. You can get to working with our athletes to help them make money. So we're really excited to kind of bring some, a little bit of different thinking into the NIL industry.
How did you guys start this in terms of approaching players? Because obviously you mentioned there are 57,000 athletes or whatever it is. And schools across the country, not just Division I football, but, all across every single sport in pretty much every single division. So, what was the player reception like? Were they super excited? I mean, obviously they were super excited about it, but did you have to educate them a little bit about the process itself and how it fits into like this NIL structure?
Sure. Well, one of the nice feedback we've got from players, as you can imagine, is players want to earn as much as they can. The challenge in NIL is to get 10 checks. I got to do 10 contracts or 10 appearances, and I've got to do all these other things that take away from my time, which is already extremely valuable and limited, to do the thing I'm actually here to do, which is play for the team. and of course, go to school while we're at it. So when we tell players, you need to think about for a second, when you endorse our company, that's one company, that one endorsement. So once a month, our platform requires the players to send us an endorsement that can be very brief and thank us for our product. And in return, we can compensate them. And how much we compensate them is directly linked to how much money is given to our company in their name in the prior 30 days. So now you're talking about a lot more money for one activity. And that's just simply more efficient for the players. And they really like that.
Another big way we're trying to educate the players and change the way they think about NIL is our platform, because of the way we've built it and we've built our business, our platform allows them to go out and monetize their own brand directly to the folks who follow them, their fans, their friends, their followers, their family. And no one else is really doing that right now. And I think it was back in December, a former Nebraska coach said, hey, let them put their Venmo up on the screen. Well, we basically allow them to do that. And as they start to figure that out, they start to get pretty excited about that opportunity.
Yeah, like I was thinking about Venmo. That seemed like the exact comparison that I was thinking of, sort of an athlete Venmo. And I think when this whole thing started in terms of NIL, a lot of us in our industry, in the media industry, we knew about the star players, but the viral sensations, the Olivia Dunns or whoever, that were famous for other reasons other than their specific skill set on the floor or the court or whatever. They've engaged and embraced social media. How have you seen that integrated into what you guys are doing at Tip a Player?
Well, we think it's really essential into what we're doing, right? We see every athlete as a content creator. My background is in digital content creators in that space. And so I see every athlete as a content creator, or they have the opportunity to be a content creator. They all have social media in some respect. They all post in their own way, some more than others, but they all have a following because of who they are, from the golfer, the softball player, all the way up to the star quarterback. They all have an opportunity to make content and build a brand and do things on social media that goes beyond their sport, right? They all have hobbies, they all have interests, they all go to school, they all work out, they all have families. And so there's an opportunity for them to create content in so many different ways. And we want to be able to come in and allow them to, for lack of a better term, monetize that, right? To be able to take advantage of their status and their profile and their name, image, and likeness and make some money off of that.
I'm a big fan of all kinds of sports, not just college, not just the main revenue sports, college football and men's college basketball. I love softball. My daughter, my 8-year-old daughter, plays softball and she absolutely loves it. It's become bigger and bigger. And I used to play baseball. So obviously college baseball is big for me, but those so-called non-revenue sports, the ones other than men's football, college football and men's basketball, this seems like a perfect way for them to capitalize because they're not going to get the money that, say, a football collective brings to an entire football team.
Yeah. And if I can add, one of the cool things about our platform is every single player has their own page. So that's a custom URL. And once you activate your page and we give you that custom URL, you can put that anywhere you like if you're a player. And where I would put it is on my own social channels, right? As Eric said, these content creators are in essence discriminated against because they can't make an online highlight reel or a clip of them making a half-court shot or rehabbing an injury and say, if you like this video, my Venmo is linked in the bottom. They cannot do that at all. They can say, my Tap account is linked at the bottom, and that's perfectly legal. So now our interests are aligned. These players can create more content and send people to a place where people can thank them for that content, and they can't do that right now, and I don't know why. You can tip your Uber driver, you can tip DoorDash, you can tip anybody. But if you go to a game and somebody makes a big shot and you try to hand them a $20 bill, they're off the team. I just think that is an antiquated way of
vacating games.
Right.
That's crazy. The entire program.
Crazy. So we really think the folks that embrace this concept of the more content I make, the more money I might make from my followers. We provide that mechanism. And of course, we're not here to tell you to raise a soda can and say, I drink Diet Coke. You put out whatever message you want when you want. And we think that is really the true idea behind NIL, of building your own brand on your own terms when you want to.
And yes, I mean, a school has 500, 600, 700 athletes, right? The collectives are not going to find an opportunity for every single one of them. They're trying their best, but they're not going to find an opportunity for every single one of them. And not every one of those athletes is going to have a brand or a business come and knock on their door. And so we want to give every one of them the opportunity to try to earn some extra money. The data we've seen shows that even at high profile sports like women's volleyball, the average volleyball player is not making that much per NIL agreement that they're working with. So, hey, even a few $100 extra a month they could get through us, or more, hopefully, right, would be a big deal to them.
There's no doubt. And that's why, like, honestly, that's what I'm excited about with this project, is that, you can see some of the lesser known players actually get what they deserve, and not just sort of be as a part of a team and get the money through a collective. So it is really fascinating. And in my mind, when I saw this, it was, to me, it's almost the idea of what NIL should be. It's almost like when we started talking about NIL 5-6 years ago, this was kind of what it was supposed to be, and then it went in all these different directions, and it's hard to grasp exactly what it is. But you guys, I'm very excited to see where this goes, because this is a way, I think, for fans to get involved, not just the rich donors. Anybody with a phone can do this. So for the fans out there, tell them how they can tip a player, not just this March, but next year and moving forward.
Yeah, so our website is live. We went live first week of January. Just go to tipaplayer.com. It's very simple. You can search bar just like you do on Google or Amazon for any player on any team. You can either tip your favorite player, or you can tip the team in its entirety with what we call a team tap. TAP is our company's acronym. A team tap is $5. So you can send your favorite team a team tap. And on the front page of the website is the tap board, which is just like the traditional leaderboards you see. Now we can have fans competing with one another to say, I sure think my team should win the tap board this month. And when we cash out the tap board at the end of every month, the money goes to the players on the court. This is not money to expand the upper deck, buy another Jumbotron, pay out the coach's buyout. This is money to the players themselves, and they earn that money through endorsing our company. So this is all above board. But we think there's some really exciting moments in the next several weeks as March Madness kicks off. There's 2 giant tournaments. 2 teams are going to win 6 games in a row and bring home national championships. And we think the fan bases are really going to support these players and teams.
I tell you what, Texas A&M fans probably would have wanted you to allow them to pay the buyout with Jimbo Fisher this past year. A little pricey. Well, Travis, Eric, appreciate you hopping on. It's a very interesting project, and I hope fans will like it. This, like you said, March is especially big for men's and women's college hoops, and then football right around the corner. So I appreciate you guys hopping on and sharing a little bit about your product. Ex-Vanderbilt quarterback who threw 17 passes, I love how they dropped that in the headline, claims the Italian mob offered cash to fix SEC games. All right. The details of this are even more hilarious. Apparently, he was approached at Jason Aldean's bar on Broadway to fix games. All right. The fact that he got approached at Jason Aldean's bar is absolutely hilarious, because I would imagine Italian mobsters would probably stick out like a sore thumb at Jason Aldean's bar, because what that is, a bunch of drunk cowboys, bunch of karaoke people, bunch of bachelorette parties. Oh, and here's this Italian mobster offering a Vanderbilt backup quarterback to fix games. The mental picture of this just is awesome. I absolutely love it. And in my mind, I don't know if this is actually how it happened. We'll probably never know how it happened. But in my mind, Mo's just sitting at the bar. Some Italian mobster with chains and a nice little hat, expensive suit, rolls up and is like, hey, bro, you play for Vanderbilt? Hey, I want to fix some games. I'm going to offer you $500, $600, $700 to fix some games, without even knowing he's not even a starter. I don't know if that's happened. I have no idea if that's how this went. But in my mind, that's how it went down. So, first of all, Mo Hassan has only attempted 17 passes. He was 11 for 17 for $158 and a touchdown in 2 years at Vanderbilt. And then he went to USC and didn't play. That in and of itself is hilarious, that a backup quarterback is being approached. But here's the thing. It's exactly what these guys do. It's exactly what these guys do. And if you think that, oh, these games never get fixed, there's no way big time games. And look, Vanderbilt is in the SEC, so I think we can consider it a big time game, whoever they play. Maybe not for Vanderbilt on Vanderbilt's side, but whoever they're playing. Yes, games get fixed. And the reason I know that is my former colleague at CBSSports.com, Dennis Dodd, wrote a fantastic piece about how games were fixed. He actually talked to a former game fixer, a mobster. And what this story was about, and you can look it up, Google it, it's really fascinating. They're not fixing games. And I mean, obviously, with Mo Hassan as a backup quarterback, they're not going to fix an outcome of a football game. Basketball game, sure. We've all seen blue chips. We know Tony fixed a game. Nick Nolte got furious at him, but they still won the game. They didn't cover the spread. Look, that doesn't happen in football. Basketball, yeah, I'm sure it happens. And actually, in this story from Dennis Dodd, they say it happens. It's a lot easier to fix a game. But in football, it's more about player props. It's more about, hey, if you're running back X, maybe don't give as much effort in the fourth quarter if you're under about 10 or 15 yards, especially if it's a blowout one way or the other. And in this story from Dennis, he specifically mentions a couple of times, and usually it's like the MAC or the Sun Belt, but he specifically mentions this mobster, hey, this is what I did in this conference. He didn't say which teams, he didn't say which players, but in this conference. And I think that is fascinating because in this day and age, it's probably going to happen more. Because some of these guys in lesser conferences, they're not going to have the NIL deals that other players do. Now, there are safeguards, obviously. It's not the NCAA that guards against this thing. And certainly, I think in the era of legalized sports gambling in a lot of different states, there are already safeguards built in. Hey, you know what? I think it was a Temple game, basketball game this year, or a couple of weeks ago, actually. Hey, there's odd betting patterns in a game. Red flags, casinos don't want to lose. So they mark it. They flag it. They report it to the cops. I think this misconception is that legalized gambling is going to increase the amount of game fixing, prop fixing, stat fixing. And in reality, it has brought it down because there are regulations. There are regulators that look out after this stuff. But my other part of this Mo Hassan thing, and it is kind of funny to say, oh, he threw 17 passes. To me, if this happened, and again, in Jason Aldean's bar, in my mind, it's at a bar with bachelorette parties and drunk cowboys, and that's neither here nor there. Why would this happen if Mo's not going to play? Well, it's simple. It's very, very simple. It's to get an in. It's to get an in with the Vanderbilt players. Plain and simple. And I think Vanderbilt is, I think, a decent target for mobsters to do this if it happened, because SEC, you're going to get more money on both sides. You can roll in some money late and you can cash in. So I think this could, if this did happen, one, it's for player props. Again, that's how you do this. It's not the outcome. And then B, it's to get it in with the entire Vanderbilt team, organization, for Mo to sort of be a recruiter, to say, hey, running back X, you're going to get the start. You're set at 59.5 in Vegas. We're probably going to lose. We're Vanderbilt. We're probably going to lose. So, hey, if you're in the fourth quarter and you're like at 49 yards, go down. Don't kill yourself trying to put up stats and score touchdowns when they really don't matter. Especially at Vanderbilt, because let's be honest, a lot of these guys are not going to go to the NFL. That's reality. So to me, two things. One, I actually believe that this happened. And again, maybe not in the cartoonish way that in my mind, that my mind spins, but I believe this did happen. And that's just a guess. I have no inside information. But I don't believe that we should joke about this either because of Hassan only throwing 17 passes. It's, in my mind, probably because this group, whatever it is, mobsters, whether they're Italian or whoever, wanted to get it in with the Vanderbilt program because Vanderbilt actually is a target for this kind of thing. Yeah, generally it's the MAC or Sun Belt or Mountain West. And it's harder to do this in college football. But I believe it. And look, we saw with the Alabama coach, baseball coach a couple years ago, last year, helping his buddy out and the buddy taking the phone call at the ticket booth with the knowledge that a pitcher is no longer going to be starting. So these things do happen. If you don't think these things happen, go look up Dennis Dodd's piece. It is wildly fascinating. And we have had instances of this in the past. I think it was Toledo 10, 15 years ago. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was a MAC team. So this stuff happens. And that's kind of why I believe that Vanderbilt would be a target. It's fascinating. I wonder if anything comes of it. I mean, the NCAA is too busy to investigate with other stuff and losing lawsuits and things like that. But if there is some sort of investigation into this, and it would probably be the FBI or whatever, maybe this thing does snowball, or we just find out a little bit more about this whole process because it is out there. And Dennis does a great job detailing that. A reminder, BreakingT.com, speaking of Vanderbilt, this is Vanderbilt's rival, or at least in the minds of the Commodores, Nico Iamaleava. Check it out. BreakingT.com. That's breakingT.com/smothered and covered. They got a great variety through all kinds of different colleges. So BreakingT.com/smothered and covered. That'll do it for this edition of the College Football Smothered and Covered Weekend Feast, the best of show from the week that was. Don't forget to give us a follow, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, Apple Podcast, wherever you get your college football content. We'll be back for another full week of College Football Smothered and Covered next week. Until then, have a great weekend, everybody.